Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to make the case for short stories. Okay, so welcome. I think short stories get a bad rap, so in this video I'm going to make a case for short stories. Whether you're a newbie writer or a more seasoned writer, you might find this useful, so take a pew and let me try and convince you of the merits of the short story form. Now, when I say short story, I mean stories ranging up to, say, 15,000 words, maybe even 20,000 words. I know some people describe stories between, say, 7,500 words and 17,500 words, 20,000 words as novelettes, but for the purposes of this talk and this video, I'm talking about anything under 20,000 words. I'm going to break this down into two elements. One is the creative element. I'm going to make the creative case, the writing case for short stories. And secondly, I'm going to make the case for short stories in terms of marketing, why it's helpful in terms of marketing. And I might split this up into two videos. It might be easier that way. So if I do that, then do check out part 2. Okay, firstly, the creative elements, the creative case for short stories. In short, it is because it is shorter. Writing a short story is quicker to finish. You can really focus on the writing, and all you have to do is make the story pop. So it's very useful in that way. You get your dopamine hit, which is important regardless of what people might think. You're not thinking about doing a massive project, which might take a year or two to complete, like a novel. So you get that dopamine hit quickly, and that is important to my mind. Secondly, developing your writing skills. If you're writing short stories, you can keep it short and sharp. You can move things along. You can introduce characters quickly. You get to the point quickly, or other elements, the emotion or the scene, and you have to knock it out. So you have to be very short and sharp and cut it down as much as possible, and that's very good writing practice. Also, short stories allow you to try different genres, different styles, different scenarios. So it helps you explore your writing interests. You can try different styles and see what you're good at, and you might find you're better at some things than others. Also, it allows you to focus on an element like character or a theme or a moment. It gives you an opportunity to hone your craft, because each story might have a different emphasis. So when I'm writing my short stories, sometimes I focus on one character in a number of different scenes, or I might just focus on one scene with a number of characters. But it gives you an opportunity to do all that, to focus. Sorry, I'm in the park recording this, so it might get a bit windy. Okay, also, every idea you have is relevant. So if you work on one project, for instance, for a number of years, many of the ideas and characters and scenes that you have pop into your head, you cannot use because they might not be relevant to your novel. So you might have to scribble them down and use them somewhere else. But if you're writing short stories, you can make it relevant to your writing by writing a short story about it. You can add it to a character, you can base it around a character, a scene, or a theme, or a little genre. So it doesn't mean you're wasting your good ideas that pop into your head. Also remember, it's not a case of either or. It doesn't mean you can't write that novel. You can write that novel, but if you can work on short stories alongside, then it means you've got that creative juices running all the time. Next, also, short stories can form part of a longer narrative. So they can be cut up into short stories, but they can form, to some degree, a novel, let's say. That's how many novels were marketed in the first place. You know, the Jane Austen, the Thomas Hardys, they were in serial form. They were like soap operas, published on a weekly basis, but then put together into a book at a later stage. So think of it, a short story, as part of one chapter in many stories. Similarly, you can deal with a big story, just break it up, and it can be scaled up at a later date. So again, some of my short stories are parts of a much larger story, so there will come a point when I will put them all together into one volume. So you can deal with an element, a scene, a character, a moment in a much larger story, but deal with it and present it as a short story for the time being. Think of your short stories as trailers in some ways for the main story or the scenes. You can build it up at a later date. This also means that you can create a universe. You can create a space in which all sorts of stories and characters can exist. You don't have to build the universe all at once like you might do with a novel, but you can add to it over the years. So that is something that helps the creative process. So think like Marvel, they have different stories in the same Marvel universe. You can have your own short stories in a universe that might have fantastical elements set in another time or another period, and you can bring it together at a later date. Finally, for this first part of the video, writing short stories means you can juggle different stories at the same time. Sometimes I find, and I'm sure everybody finds, that you do struggle to write that big story. You're plugging along, trying to knock it out, and you do get bored at times. But if you have a short story practice, then you can move, you can take time away from your big project and work on a smaller short story. I have 10 to 15 short stories going on at any one time that I dip in and out of. But because I'm making progress with them as the months go by, I can give them a fast burn of activity and finish them quite quickly and then put them into a collected stories volume. So that's the end of the first video. On the second video, I'm going to talk about marketing elements and how short stories can help or be a good route to go down in terms of marketing. Do check out my other videos and also check out my short stories. There'll be a link on the website as well. Thank you.